Welcome back, Summoners, to another ProGuides patch rundown video. My name is Christoph, and today I'm going to go over some changes made in patch 9.3. In this video, you'll find that we made some small changes to our usual tier list. We will now be splitting our meta-analysis videos into two parts to give you the most accurate information we can offer. The first video will be released at the start of every patch and will include a tier list that predicts which champions we believe will be strong in the upcoming meta. The second video will be released 1 week into the patch when we have all the statistical data to give you guys the best champions. This is a big patch and there's a lot to cover, so let's get right into it. Even after multiple nerfs to Aatrox, he's still been at the top of the tier list for far too long. The nerfs made to his kit this patch focused on lowering his raw power, but clearly they weren't enough to knock him out of his S-tier status. Aatrox will be receiving a nerf to his E, Umbral Dash, followed by a compensation buff to his HP regen and growth. Umbral Dash will no longer heal when attacking non-champions and will also no longer be able to hold multiple charges. These are both huge nerfs to Aatrox and will likely be the nail in the coffin that will lead to his downfall in the meta. Removing the charges from Umbral Dash means it'll become extremely difficult to land all 3 Qs, which will lead to Aatrox doing much less damage in fights. We predict that Aatrox will be dropped to our B top lane tier list this patch, but is definitely subject to change in the upcoming week. Raelia suffered some heavy nerfs in the past patch, but has still managed to hold a solid stance in the meta. Although she is definitely weaker than before, Raelia will still be receiving a few changes this patch to shift her more towards the top lane. Firstly, Raelia's passive Ionian Fervor will no longer grant bonus attack damage per stack, but instead will give bonus attack speed. The cap stacks for Ionian Fervor has been increased from 4 to 5 and will now grant bonus attack damage instead of attack speed as a max stack bonus. In addition, Raelia's Q, Blade Surge, will be buffed to deal more damage to minions, and she will also have her base HP growth and armor buffed as well. Lastly, Raelia's W, Defiant Dance, has been nerfed to only grant you 50% reduced physical damage. These changes are huge for Raelia and will most likely result in her seeing much less play in the mid lane. Raelia will be dropped to our top lane B tier list for patch 9.3. Sion has been a solid pick in the top lane and has seen a lot of play in competitive matches. In the current meta, Sion has easily been the most consistent top lane champion and will be receiving a few nerfs this patch. To allow Sion's bad matchups to feel more punishing, his Q, Decimating Smash, will have its minimum and maximum damage nerfed by a sizable amount. In addition, his W, Soul Furnace, will have its cooldown increased during the early to mid game. Sion will still be a solid pick in patch 9.3 and will remain in our top lane A tier this patch. The top lane tier list for this patch has had a lot of changes. Notice in our S tier we only have 4 champions instead of the usual 5 due to Cassiopeia dropping down into our A tier. We'll go over the changes made to her in our mid lane section, so make sure to stay tuned. Sion and Yorick are the 2 best contenders for our final spot in the S tier, and we'll make sure to keep you guys updated in our meta-analysis video coming next week. Our prediction for the strongest champions this patch are Darius, Jax, Riven, and Urgot. Make sure to try them out in your next solo queue games for the best results. On to the jungle. Although Camille's play rate has been dropping since the prior EXP nerfs, she will be receiving another nerf to prioritize her play toward the top lane. Camille's E hookshot will no longer stun minions and monsters, making her take much more damage during the early jungle clears and also increasing the time it takes to clear the Scuttle Crab. Many high elo jungler players believe that this change will completely kill Camille in the jungle, and our in-house analysts think the same. Camille will be removed completely from our jungle tier list for patch 9.3, but we'll see if she can make a comeback in the meta next week. With all the prior jungle changes finally setting in, the tier list for patch 9.3 will also see a lot of changes from our previous one. In our S tier, we welcome 2 new members, which are Rammus and Nunu, who have some of the highest win rates in the jungle right now. Jungle has now been shifted to more of a tank and supportive role due to low XP efficiency, which allows champions like Nunu, Sejuani, Rammus, and Ivern to thrive in the meta. Ranged champions such as Graves and Kindred, who build similar items as ADCs, will be in our A tier for now, but are subject to change once the meta settles in. Ivern is making a comeback in the meta and is an extremely underrated jungler. Try him out in a normal game and the results will speak for themselves. There were a lot of changes made to Akali during the preseason, but the devs have finally decided to pull the plug on her. Akali will be receiving 2 huge nerfs to her kit this patch, followed by a compensation buff to her base health regen. Her Q, 5-point strike, will no longer heal her while she is at 180 energy or more. In addition, her W, Twilight Shroud, will no longer prevent turrets from revealing her. These 2 nerfs will definitely lower the power of Akali significantly, and she will see a lot less play in the upcoming meta. Akali will be dropped to our mid lane B tier for this patch, but you can probably expect her to be dropped even further in the coming week. Cassiopeia has been one of the most oppressive champions for a while, but surprisingly hasn't seen that much play in solo queue. To keep Cassiopeia in check, her Q, Noxious Blast, will have its base damage nerfed during the early game, but will now do more damage during the late game. Also, her W, Miasma, will have its mana cost increased, followed by a nerf to its damage per second and max damage. Although these nerfs do take a toll on Cassiopeia, she will still be strong in the current meta, and will be dropped to our A tier for patch 9.3. Lissandra has been the most solid pick in the mid lane for quite some time and will have a few new changes to her kit this patch. Her Q, Ice Shard, will have its mana cost increased by a small amount, followed by a nerf to her E, Glacial Path's damage. You'll definitely feel these nerfs when you play her this patch, but she will still be a powerful pick in the meta. The damage nerfs on her E are almost negligible since she mostly uses it as a utility and engage or escape tool. We predict that Lissandra will remain in our S tier for patch 9.3 since most of her core strengths come from Aftershock instead of her base stats. Due to a lot of nerfs on our S tier champions for mid lane, our tier list will see a lot of changes for patch 9.3. Raelia, Aatrox, and Cassiopeia have all been dropped from our S tier, and we've added Talon, Zoe, and Kassadin as their replacements. Sylas has been added into our A tier list for mid lane and is a decent pick in the right hands. Akali has been dropped to our B tier due to the massive nerfs in her kit, but we will keep you updated on the stats in our next video, because these nerfs were big. Try out some of our S tier champions in your ranked games. We especially recommend you try Lissandra and Zoe since they are very easy to learn. Marksmen have seen the most changes during Season 8 and are getting reworked this patch to increase their impact on each game. There are a lot of changes made to ADC itemization, and we predict that these changes will make the bottom lane the most impactful role on the Rift. Cloak of Agility is returning to the Rift this patch and will be used to build into multiple crit items. It now costs 800 gold and grants you 20% critical chance. After the previous Infinity Edge nerf, the item no longer felt very satisfying to build. In patch 9.3, the devs have decided to restore Infinity Edge's synergy with itself and make it more gratifying to pick up. Infinity Edge will now build from BF Sword plus Pickaxe plus Cloak of Agility and grants you 80 AD and now increases critical strike damage by 25. Essence Reaver was originally meant for ADCs such as Xayah and Ashe, but has been more popular among fighters such as Renekton and Riven. Essence Reaver will receive a few changes to shift it back toward the ADC position. It now builds from Pickaxe, Caulfield's Warhammer, and Cloak of Agility, and will have a total cost of 3,200 gold. The base AD has been lowered to 60, but now gives 25% crit chance. The old passive Essence Flare has been removed, and the item will no longer grant 300 base mana. Many of you recognize this item from Nexus Blitz, but don't be fooled, it's a completely different item now. Spear of Shojin will now build out of BF Sword and Kindle Gem plus a Longsword, and will have a total cost of 3,400 gold. It grants 60 AD, 250 HP, and gives 20% cooldown reduction. Awakened Dragon is the passive for this item, which acts as a similar version of the old Essence Flare. Stormrazor is getting a complete overhaul and will no longer be focused on dealing burst damage in quick skirmishes. Its total cost has been increased to 3,100 gold, and it will build from Kirch's Shard instead of Dagger. It grants 55 AD, 25% attack speed, but its passive now deals 65 bonus magic damage on hit and slows the target by 40% for 1 second. Phantom Dancer will have its gold reduced to 2,600 and will build from Brawler's Gloves instead of Double Dagger from now on. Its attack speed has been lowered by 15%, the critical change has also been reduced by 5%, and the old passive has been removed completely. Phantom Dancer's new passive is now Lifeline, which grants you a shield that absorbs up to 600 damage while you're below 30% HP. In addition, its secondary passive Spectral Waltz now grants 7% movement speed for 2 seconds after auto-attacking a champion. Rapid Fire Cannon, Runan's Hurricane, and Static Shiv will have their gold lowered, but will also have their critical chance nerfed by 5%. Static Shiv will also see an additional nerf to its attack speed by 5% as well. Dominic's Regard and Mortal Reminder will both have their base AD stats increased by 5. These are our predictions for the ADC tier list this patch. At S tier, we can see Lucian, Caitlyn, Sivir, Twitch, and Cassiopeia. Since ADCs play a more impactful role in the meta, lane-dominant champions will most likely see more play. Jhin has been dropped to our B tier this patch due to his core items, Stormrazor receiving a rework. We'll keep you updated on how these items affect each champion and make sure to provide you with more information once the changes settle in and when the stats are available. Zyra will be receiving a small patch to her plant damage at all levels. She will still be a strong carry support in the meta, but will now have to rely more on landing her abilities instead of using her plants all the time. Zyra will remain in our support A tier for patch 9.3. The support tier list remains unchanged from last patch since there were no balance changes made to support in patch 9.3. However, shielding supports might make a return in the meta due to ADCs being a little bit more impactful. Once the stats are available, we'll make sure to include more information about how these changes have affected the support meta in our next video. That's it for patch 9.3. If you enjoyed watching this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Also, we have a huge announcement that ProGuides is now free for all users. Click the link below and check out our website for exclusive League of Legends content made by your favorite professional players. In addition, make sure to check out our previous video for an all-inclusive Sylas guide featuring Bunny Fufu. The second part to our meta-analysis video will be available next week, which will bring you more accurate tier lists using fresh statistics. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the Rift.